Okay, starting off, we want to look at where we manage our files. We're going to manage, right now we're managing them in Lightroom. So this is the raw converter. We could be using Camera Raw, we could be using a number of other programs. But it's important to note that I do raw processing in this environment to set the file up for moving into Photoshop, where I'm going to need the precision and the details that Photoshop is going to offer me. So knowing that I'm going there means that I'm going to make sure the file is set up accordingly and not overdone, so to speak. Now I'm also dealing with Cintiq. I use a Cintiq, but using any kind of Wacom tablet or with a stylus, I think is really beneficial when you're working with these type of files in this type of an environment. But to each his own. Some people like using a mouse. I really can't see how someone can do this with a touchpad, but to each his own. So let's jump right in. Now, if we just go to edit this first file, it's going to make a copy of this file. You notice that it's an MOS file. This is a Mamiya 645 file, so we've got good bit depth in this file. So it creates the file and launches Photoshop. Now I'm just going to quiet down this background here and just eliminate that. And notice that we are in a 16-bit environment. We see this in the file name. We want to stay in that 16-bit environment as long as we possibly can. Now the file size, we're going to monitor down here. We're starting off with a 158 meg file. So it's important for us to maintain 16-bit the whole time through if we possibly can, even if it means we have certain stages of the retouch, because bit depth is very, very important to us. Even if your client says your image is going to live very small on the web, inevitably it's going to want to be played somewhere else. And if you've got any indication of that, it would behoove you to make sure the retouch can address that and not have to go back and redo it for a different application later on. So with that, I'm going to do something here that is counterintuitive to what I just talked about, but for sake of the speed of the video and the lessons, I'm going to move this to 6 to 8-bit, simply for file size and for keeping this lean and keeping it moving along. But do not do what I'm about to do. It's not that this is going to destruct your file, but you want to maintain 16-bit as long as you possibly can in this process. So I'm going to hit the F key, so I'm going to go to full screen mode, and I like to do this simply because I can see the full edges of my frame, and I have a background file, and I have my retouching work space up, so I've got all the things I need to see up in place, and I am ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is go down here to my new layer, and I'm going to add a new layer, just a blank layer here. I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to call this map. Now you will notice that going through this, I label pretty much everything. Organization is essential if you're going to do this regularly or for business. Well, with any kind of regularity, that you're going to need to make sure that you can go back and access this information at a later date. So organization is key. So here I'm going to tap the B key, get a brush, and I'll get a different color. I'll get something maybe red, and I'll get a smaller brush. And we can use assorted color codes for some for blemishes, some for reshaping, some for color. You can set up your own kind of method as far as how to use the colors and what they mean to you, but I just want to give you an idea of what we're working with here. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to get a little bit closer so we can see some of the skin. Now, so we can go through with our brush, make a little bit smaller brush, and we can start to circle some of the blemish areas that we want to make sure that we're handling. We'll make sure that our brush is up to 100% opacity and flow, so we get a good solid read on that. So we can just go through and start to just make little circles of areas that we want to address. And these are all blemish areas, and I'm going to handle the blemishes with the color red. So we're going to go through this, maybe the hot spot here. We'll scroll down a little bit, And it's not important that you hit everything, but you just want to hit the major things so we can go back and check at a later date and make sure that we've addressed all the things that we've addressed. We haven't missed anything that was obvious. And also important to maybe update your image map at the end of your retouch. So maybe these hairs, make little notations of that. Want to make sure the under the eyes is dealt with. Maybe this under here, we minimize that. And we can go through the image, and I won't bore you with doing this overly thoroughly, but depending on where this is going to live, you would want to make sure you have a pretty good, accurate rendition of this. Now I'm going to switch colors here because I'm going to deal with some other shaping things that I want to make note of. So let me just zoom out, and I can switch colors, and I can go to maybe something green and get my brush back, and with the green color I can say, okay, the green's going to deal with color. So I want the color of the eyes, I want maybe a little bit of makeup in here, the color of her lips, and in her hair I want the color addressed, so I can just go through this, and I can actually come over here and say plus yellow. So if I want to add some yellow to that, and now I can grab a different color, maybe something blue, and this would be my shaping. So I look through the image and I see areas that maybe need to be reshaped. Some areas down here, maybe I want to bring the neck in a little bit. I want to reshape the nose and her lip area a little bit, and maybe reshape to get a little bit of shadow built in here. And then I might grab another color finally, maybe a yellow color, and make some final notes as far as other things that I might want to address. Like I might want to do something like extend some of the eyeliner under here, the eyelashes. I might want to address the brightness of that. I might want to, if I have to go back and redress shaping, I just go back and I can grab a blue, and as long as it's pretty close, it doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. We want to maybe hit some of these areas as far as reshaping when we reshape, and maybe we handle these flyaway hairs. So you get the idea of where we're going with the image map. So now we have kind of a map now of where we'd like to go with the image. And this is not something we're going to refer to always, but something that I think is very helpful when you're working with a file, to keep you kind of head in the game as far as where you're going and what you're addressing. And we're going to move on to the next phase, which is going to be basically the blemishes of the skin.